Hi everybody, and welcome back to my kitchen. This is Linda. Today we're going to make some bread, and I'm going to call it same day bread because you can make it and eat it the same day, and it's good. It's a good, delicious bread. Now, some of the things that you're going to need is a bucket, and I think I got this at one of those big box stores. This is a 5-quart plastic bucket with a lid. You're going to need that. You're going to need some active dry yeast that is good. Don't use any that's old or out of date. You're going to need some kosher salt. You're going to need 4 cups of bread flour. You're going to need a sheet of parchment paper. You're going to need a rack to put the bread on after it's baked. And you're going to need a vessel to bake it in. Now, I'm using a clay baker, but you don't have to. You can use cast iron. You can use a heavy Dutch oven. You can use anything that can withstand 450 degree oven that's tight. They all have to have lids. And you might want to try it out in your oven before you've turned it on to make sure it fits comfortably. If it doesn't, remove a rack. Alright, we're going to get started. Now, you're going to need water too, and this water, I'm only doing half of the recipe. Alright, in my bucket, I'm going to put a tablespoon of active dry yeast. You're going to need a spoon too, and I use wooden, something other than metal. You're going to need a tablespoon of kosher salt. You're going to pour in your 2 cups of water that's between 110 and 120 degrees, and do not use tap water. Use a purified water, something with not, any chemicals in it. And stir them up. I forgot to tell you, you need bread flour. And the type of bread flour you use doesn't really matter. I've got gold medal. Now, I was going to make rosemary bread, but I couldn't find my rosemary. This is 4 cups of bread flour. I'm just going to stir this. Until it's all mixed together, shaggy looking. Sometimes if your house is real dry, you may need just a tad more water. Alright, this is mixed. Now, all you're going to do from this point is put your lid on it, and you're just going to let it sit. You don't have to let it sit in a warm place, but you don't want it any place drafty, where there's cold air coming in all the time. Put your lid on it, and leave one corner of the lid unfastened, because this is going to rise. And if your house is cool, and I keep mine cool, it may take longer. But they say, what's said is that it should double in size in 2 hours. And this will make 2 loaves, good sized loaves of bread. You can double this recipe, and if you double it, it's the same ingredients, just doubled. So we're going to let this sit a couple hours, and then, you know, we'll go on from there. Alright, it's been 2.5, 3 hours. And if I tilt this, you can see that it has doubled in size. And this is just with half a recipe. So if you're going to make the whole recipe, which is 8 cups of flour and 4 cups of water and 2 tablespoons of salt and 2 tablespoons of dry active yeast, it's going to rise above this bucket. And this is a 5-quart bucket, so you might, if you plan on making 4 loaves, then you might want to get a bigger bucket. But if not, this bucket will do just fine, a 5-quart bucket. I'm going to take some flour and sprinkle it on top of this dough. And then I'm going to come around the sides and kind of pull it away. And it'll deflate some. But that's okay. It doesn't matter. Then I'm going to take a big old handful. I want to say, I don't know, about a grapefruit size. Yeah, about a grapefruit size. And I probably should have used one hand. I'm going to set this aside. There's more dough in there for another loaf. So I'm going to, well, let me leave the bucket over here for a minute. I'm going to take some more flour and I'm going to sprinkle it on this to make it easier to handle. And you can see there's nothing wrong with it being this sticky. And you're just going to keep moving this dough around until, I probably need to flour my hands some, because that's part of the problem. You're going to move this around until you get it in the shape you want it. Now you can make a round loaf or you can make an oblong loaf. You make any shape loaf you want. But just move the top of the dough to the bottom. You know, kind of stretch it around till you get a nice firm looking dough on top. See that? You just move it around. Just keep pulling it like that. And this only takes a few minutes. It doesn't take long. Now, you may want yours round. I want mine a little oblong. So I've got my piece of parchment here, and I turned it upside down so that it wouldn't roll up on me. Alright, here's my bread. Now I'm going to let it sit there just like this for 20 minutes. And in 20 minutes I'm going to come back in here and turn my oven on to 450, And whatever vessel I have decided to use goes in there at the same time. You're going to heat them both up at the same time, and then when the oven is piping hot and your vessel and lid are piping hot, after 20 more minutes, it'll be a total of 40 minutes, then we'll be back. Alright. My bread, instead of the dough, instead of rising up, it went out. But hopefully the clay pot that I chose to put it in will correct that, and it'll rise in the oven. But in the meantime, I wanted you to see that I scored all the way around this bread, about 2/3 of the way down, and hopefully that will encourage it to rise more freely. I'm going to take a little bit of butter and put it on the top of this bread. This is melted butter. And I'm going to sprinkle some sesame seeds on it. But you don't have to put anything on it. You don't even have to put the butter on it. Or you can use sesame seeds. You can use cracked wheat. You can use oatmeal. Not oatmeal, oats. You can put just about anything you want on top of your bread, or use nothing at all. Now that clay pot has been in my oven heating for 20 minutes because I let this rise for 20 minutes, and then I came and set my oven on 450, and I let the top and the clay pot heat up, and that clay pot has got to be very hot. So here's our sesame seed top, and I'm going to take this knife and I'm going to give it a few slashes. And make sure you use a sharp knife. Go straight down with it, not at an angle. Alright. Now this part is very dangerous. You can burn yourself really bad. So you're going to get that pot out of the oven and put the top to the side. I think the safest place to put it would be on top of your stove. Just leave it there. And you're going to set this pot right here, that hot pot, as soon as I get my mitts. Alright. I'm going to remove the top. You can tell I've baked a lot of bread in this. Now you're just going to take parchment paper and all, and you're going to plop it right down in whatever you have chosen to bake your bread in. And you're going to put the top back on. Put it in the oven, center of the oven, and set the timer on 30 minutes. Trying to make sure this is on tight, which it is. It's on tight. When the 30 minutes are up, you're going to take the lid off and leave it in there without a lid. For 10 to 20 minutes, depending on how brown you want the top of your bread. So we'll be back then. Hi everybody, we're back. The bread is done. And this is the first loaf I baked. And it rose, but the center didn't rise. So I thought, oh my gosh, I started thinking about it and I thought, why would the center not rise? And I remembered how tacky that bread was. So I went into the bucket and I added about an eighth of a cup more bread flour, and I baked it immediately. And this is the second loaf of bread, which turned out perfectly. So that was the entire bucket of bread. But Sam's here. We're going to cut this original loaf, which I have already cut. And to me it's delicious, but you know, you all like his reviews. So
they know I'm a professional eater.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Boy, I messed that piece up pretty
Well, that's
good.
okay. That'll be fine.
That's enough?
I believe it is enough for me to know if it's any good or not.
Alright, so I cut him a real thin piece. He's got some butter over there.
I hadn't even had all my coffee yet.
And here's the inside.
Let me put a little...
Isn't that gorgeous? Those little seeds are from the top. When you cut down in it, the seeds will go in there.
Well, it's real moist and all on the inside, crunchy on the outside. Got an excellent taste. I like those little seeds.
Those are sesame seeds.
Sesame seeds.
I'm going to give y'all a little tip about bread. Once you cut it, because there's no preservatives in this type of bread when you make it yourself. And you know you're going to use more of it soon. Turn it upside down. Put the cut part to the plate or the platter or whatever. Put that down and it'll stay moist and fresh. It won't start getting stale or hard. And another thing is to keep from tearing the bread up, if you'll cut it while it's on its side, you won't tear it up. And this is a real chewy crust. It's delicious.
It is.
Another thing, the dough that you don't use will stay good for two weeks in the refrigerator. So you can either wait the 2 weeks, because you know the longer you hold it, it becomes more like a sourdough. You know, it gets a little sourdough taste to it. And but that's up to you. You can bake it right away. It's good, or you don't have to. And this makes 2 loaves of bread, and you got to have a little bit of special equipment like this plastic bucket and bread flour to make it. Well, I have another recipe that I'll put up for y'all that is a same day bread that only makes one loaf. So you can do it in a big mixing bowl, and you don't have to have anything special to make it. In fact, you can use bread flour, or you can use all-purpose flour. You can use regular salt. You can use kosher salt. You can use sea salt. It's a easier recipe. It only makes one loaf, but I suppose you could double it. Thank you for coming in today and spending part of your day with me. I always appreciate it. Please like and subscribe if you haven't. Let me get a better shot of that. There we go. There's the 2 loaves come out. There you go. All right. Please like and subscribe. Give me a thumbs up is a like. And I'll be waiting here for you for the next recipe. And until next time, you all take care and God bless.